Well, okay, we are going to start now. So far we have studied how Shivaji had, fought battles initially against the Adil forces, defeated Afzal Khan, and then later on, his struggle with Mughal has started, and he fought quite successfully. He was, put on the back foot also by Mirza Raja Jai Singh, and then he traveled to Agra. He successfully comes back, and then after that, again there is after a few years of peace, there is again renewal of war against the Mughal, and Shivaji almost reconquers all the fort that he had ceded to Mughal during the Treaty of Purandari in 1665. Now, though Shivaji had succeeded in establishing his own independent kingdom, and he was behaving almost like an independent king, but still, there were certain issues which prompted him to think about the coronation ceremony. And that coronation ceremony, what is its significance? What were the reason that Shivaji thought of conducting coronation ceremony? That we will be discussing today. Sharing. Well, can you see the PPT and me both?
Yes, sir.
Well, okay. So this coronation ceremony, it took place on 6 June 1674. That was the important day. In fact, it was a long ceremony carried over the period of around 9 days. But this is the most important day, and it was done at Raigad. Raigad, which came in the hand of Shivaji after the conquest of Zawadi, and that fort, that mountain was very inaccessible, very safe place. And Shivaji thought about making this place as his capital, and fort was under construction for a considerable period, and finally it was ready. And what was the need of this coronation? To assert independence. His father, Shivaji's father Shahaji, he was in the service of Sultan of Bijapur, and it is on the behalf of his father that he was looking after the Jagir of Pune and surrounding area. So, from the Adil Shahi perspective, though Shivaji became quite strong militarily, he was still being treated as son of the Jagirdar, and the other ruler used to treat him as a kind of rebel. Aurangzeb used to call him derogatorily as a mountain rat. And we have seen that pictorial presentation of Shivaji's meeting with Aurangzeb. He was made to stand in the line of Panch Mansabdar, who had 5,000 Mansabdari. So he was not treated as an independent ruler by the other ruler, that of course Aurangzeb, and as well as the other ruler of the south. And Many people, we have seen the work of the Marathi Sant. We have seen how the mind of the Maharashtrian people started dreaming about having an independent kingdom, that is reflected in the writing of Ramdasa. And many people thought that it is in the form of Shivaji. Shivaji personifies that inspiration, that we should have an independent Hindu Maratha kingdom in the south. And it is with the hope of the fulfilling that inspiration, that Chhatrapati Shivaji thought of coronating himself. And but now coronation was not that easy affair. There are certain difficulties. For example, this kind of independent coronation ceremony of an independent king has not taken place for many years together. There used to be the coronation ceremony of an independent Hindu king in the Vijayanagara, but the Vijayanagara kingdom ceased to exist in around 1565 in the Battle of Rakshitagadi. They were defeated, and thereafter, though there were numerous Hindu king in Rajasthan as well as certain king in the southern, but they were the vessel of either of the Sultan or other Muslim Sultan of the south. And it is with the consent of that, either of the Mughal emperor, or either with the consent or either with the permission of this Muslim Sultan of the Deccan, Bahamani Sultanate or Bijapur or Golconda, that this king used to conduct that coronation ceremony in that small principality in that area which was under their control. But though they become king by name, they were not virtually independent ruler. They had to listen to the either they were vassal of either of the Mughal or either of the Sultan of Deccan. So, in a way, this was a kind of novel experiment. Shivaji, who was independent, he was Hindu, he wanted to coronate himself, and there were a number of difficulties. It was not that easy. For example, how the ceremony is to be conducted, that is being lost. So, first, that is to be found out. Secondly, in the Indian tradition, in the Hindu mythology, there is a myth that Parshurama, who was a Brahmin, he killed all the Kshatriyas 21 times, and then there was a myth also propagated by the some selfish Brahmins that in the Kali Yuga, the present Yuga, there is no Kshatriya available. There are only two Varnas, Brahmin and Shudra. That is deliberately propagated myth in order to raise the prestige of the Brahmin. It is a kind of if you remember Foucault's narrative that we talk when we discuss about postmodernism, the narratives are created by the people in power in order to secure their position in the society. So this kind of narratives went on, and so there was, of course, it was challenged. There are Rajputs who always claim that they are Kshatriyas, and but then there was another narrative which said that Kshatriya no longer exists. Now, another thing is that as the Maharashtra was ruled by the Nizam Shah of Ahmednagar for centuries together, and then significant portion of it went to the Bijapur, Ahmad Shah. So the Maratha nobility, like there were traditional Maratha nobilities who were holding the significant area under their control from a very remote antiquity, from maybe from Yadava's period. So they they become used to serve under the Muslim Sultan, and they were the Jagirdar, Zamindar, and they treated Shivaji as one among them. So they had no hesitation in serving to the Muslim Sultan because it has become a tradition now. They have seen that their ancestors, their father, grandfather, forefather, they served the Muslim Sultan of either Nizam Shah or or Adil Shah, but they were now hesitating to accept the overlordship of Shivaji, though Shivaji became militarily very superior. It was a kind of jealousy that somebody out of your stock, out of you, is going ahead of you and becoming an independent ruler. So there was an opposition from the local Maratha chief as well. So now, how this ceremony is to be performed, or whether the king has the Shivaji belongs to the Kshatriya, because according to the Hindu tradition, Hinduism is this caste system and Varna system is one of the feature of the Hinduism, and there are a lot of behavior, a lot of attitude which is influenced by this caste tradition. So there are these two problems: whether Shivaji is really a Kshatriya, or then there is an opposition from the local Maratha chief. Now, how to resolve this issue? See, this Kshatriya status of Shivaji and Marathas is always a contested territory. um, People believe that because Shivaji's ancestors like Maloji Bhosle and all, they were cultivators. So people were knowing that Shivaji's ancestry were the ancestry of cultivator. They were Kunbi. But then Shivaji, before Shivaji, Shahaji, who became a very important noble in the court of Bijapur and in the court of Nizam Shah uh, of Ahmednagar before that, he claimed to be a Kshatriya. His eldest son, whose name was Sambhaji, that is Shivaji's elder brother, he also claimed himself to be Rajput. At the same time, when Shivaji went to Agra and during his confinement in Agra, some of the Rajput nobles they came and had a meeting with Shivaji, and then that record has been found where these Rajputs they write that Shivaji speak like a true Rajputs. So the Shivaji's family belongs to the Rajput Kshatriya family was also one of the opinion that was prevailing, and one of the opinion was that of course Shivaji belongs to the lower caste, cultivator caste, and not a Kshatriya. Now, this to resolve this issue, we need some authority. See, there are different levels of authority. For example, in the house, our elderly people are generally, usually they have some authority. We just can't go against their wish. For example, if they want everybody should be getting up by 6 o'clock in the morning, and then there will be always pressure on the children, the younger people, that they should get up before 6 o'clock. Otherwise, grandma doesn't like that you should sleep up to 7 o'clock, or it goes the way we dress up, or it also puts certain discipline on us up to what time we can stay out of the house in the night. So they have certain authority. Similarly, in the society also, these Brahmins who are considered to be learned, expert in the Sanskrit text, they had certain authority. Shivaji, through his men, approached a person called Gaga Bhatta. Gaga Bhatta was a person who was staying in Banaras, though his ancestors have migrated to Banaras from Maharashtra. So he was basically a Maharashtrian Brahmin person, but then he was staying in Banaras, conducting his school there, teaching Vedic text to the students. So he was approached by the mains of Brahmin because he was a person who was having a significant respect in the among the Hindu community. His family was considered as a traditional priest of the Rajput kings of Rajasthan. So he was having a prestige among the Hindu nobility. And it was believed that if he gives his consent to coronate Shivaji, then probably Shivaji's identity as a Kshatriya king will be strengthened. There is always identity issues when we try to establish your rule. Uh, for example, when I was in Tripura, I came across a text called Rajmala, that is a royal chronicle of the kings of Tripura. And though it is believed that the kings of Tripura were basically tribal, from that tribal somebody becomes chief, and then later on that chiefship becomes kingship. He was basically from that tribal Devarma. But the Brahmins who were working in his court, the Bengali Brahmins, they wrote a story. They wrote in that Rajmala that during the ancient time, King Yayati, the Kshatriya king, he got annoyed with his own son, and his son was expelled from the kingdom. And that expelled son from all the way from Hastinapur, which is supposed to be present in Delhi, came to Tripura, and he established his kingdom there. So the king has become Kshatriya because of that story, and he becoming Kshatriya, he gains some respectability among the Hindu nobility. So there was an attempt to bring respectability to the Shivaji's house, and for that reason, lot of things were dug out. It was then proved by the genealogy, by the lineage, that Shivaji's lineage, Shivaji's surname was Bhosle. So this Bhosle surname came from the name Bhosaji. And Bhosaji was one of the prince of Udaipur, the Shisodiya Rajputs of Mewar. The same dynasty to which Rana Sangha belonged, who fought against Babur, and to which Maharana Pratap belonged, who fought against Akbar, a very long drawn war. So among the Rajputs, that Shisodiya dynasty was the most respected because they were the people who never surrendered completely to the Mughal or Sultan. And they even later on, after the death of Maharana Pratap, Rana Amar Singh, his son, he had a kind of agreement with Jahangir. And Jahangir, when Rana Amar Singh was invited to meet Jahangir, Jahangir got up from his throne and gave a lot of respect to Rana Amar Singh. And in that agreement, there was one clause that no Mughal king will force the Shisodiya Rajputs to give their daughter in marriage to the Mughal. So they consider it as a matter of pride that we are the people who stood against the pressure of the Mughal, and that is the reason they became very respected among the Rajput community. And the lineage of Shivaji was traced to Sisodiya dynasty. That it was a Prince Bhosaji, the Rajput prince, who migrated from Udaipur to Maharashtra, and later on that name Bhosaji got converted into the Bhosle, and that is how the surname Bhosle came. And Gaga Bhatt accepted this genealogy, and Gaga Bhatt finally agreed to come for the coronation ceremony and guide the coronation ceremony. And Jadunath Sarkar, he is very characteristically blunt at some of the place, and he says that Gaga Bhatt was agreed to do this at the cost of lot of money. And there are evidences that Gaga Bhatt was given lot of dakshina. Dakshina is a standard word. the kind of fees given to the Brahmin for performing the religious ceremony. That matter was resolved. Finally, Gagabhatta accepted that Chhatrapati Shivaji is Kshatriya, and he is to be accepted. He have a right to coronate himself. It is only Kshatriya who can coronate himself. So he silenced a lot of opposition, though there was an opposition. So certain Brahmins, they continue to oppose this, stating that the Shivaji is not Kshatriya. He is a common cultivator called Kunbi community, and he have no right to coronate himself. Second objection was raised that if Shivaji is Kshatriya, he had not performed the Kshatriya rites. Neither his family, his ancestors, has performed Kshatriya rites for generation together, and that is a sin. Living up your caste right is considered as a sin. So, but then Gaga Bhatta solved this issue. Also, he stated that there is something called prashchitta in Sanskrit. Prashchitta means do something so you will be redeemed. Even if you are committed transgression of the caste rule, you will be redeemed. That can also be done. Then another objection was raised that Shivaji during his raids, during his war, had killed certain Brahmins, and his action had led to the discomfort and killing of certain women and children as well, which is not suitable for a Kshatriya king. But Gaga Bhatta and the Brahmins, they agreed on that. Yeah, that can also be done. We need to perform certain rituals, certain puja, and of course we need to get certain fees, certain dakshina for it. So these issues are resolved. Shivaji being Kshatriya is accepted. The Brahmins who opposed this were silenced, and Gaga Bhatta being a very respectable person who came around to the opinion of Shivaji and his supporter, many of them were silenced now. So we will go ahead. Any doubts so far you have? You understood these issues about all being Kshatriyas and opposition from the local nobility, so on and so forth. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Well, so no, now the preparation for the coronation have started. Shivaji, of course, have gathered lot of wealth. In 1670, he looted Surat second time. And why Gaga Bhatta was called, that I have already explained. He was very respectable person, and Shivaji from his part also thought that if I coronate myself just by taking the help of a local Brahmin who is there in Maharashtra, probably it will not have respectability. It's better to invite somebody who is having a respectability like Gaga Bhatta. And apart from Gaga Bhatta, there was another Brahmin, Maharashtrian Brahmin in the service of Shivaji, who was Balaji Auji, who was Chitnis, the writer of Shivaji. He also took a lot of initiative in convincing the Brahmin about the need of coronation. And now, as what kind of ceremony is to be conducted to understand the ceremony of coronation, the scriptures were read. People were sent to Udaipur because Rajputs, they had a traditional system of coronation. So to understand how that coronation is to be done, people were sent from Shivaji's court to Udaipur to learn and understand the proceeding of the ceremony. Large number of people, the Brahmins, Medican, Nobel, they were invited to gather at Raigad, and they stayed there for months together. The preparation went for months together. Many Brahmins along with their family, and they were fed and looked after by Shivaji's man. Many commanders, distinguished guests, all of them gathered at Raigad. But before proceeding with the ceremony, Shivaji took adequate precaution that his kingdom is protected. Not all the commanders were called to at the Raigad fort, but many of them were stationed in the border to protect the kingdom. Uh, and we get two very important account of the proceeding of this coronation. One account is written by Gaga Bhatta himself. He wrote this Sanskrit text called Shivrajyabhishek Prayog, which gives a lot of information about the preparation and the conducting of the ceremony. Similarly, at the same time, there was a British representative who was present on Raigad during the coronation ceremony, and his name was Oxenden, and he was accompanied by an interpreter called Narayan Shinoy, who knew English as well as Marathi, and he interpreted. This British representative, they had meeting with Shivaji, and they had a certain discussion through the interpreter. There is a book called Shivaji, the Grand Rebel, and this is written by one British civil servant, Dennis Kincaid, and this is written during the British period. The new edition is recently published, but it was first time published before much before independence. And here he gives a good account of the good. He reproduces the account given by the British representative of Ceylon. Well, now before ceremony, Shivaji went to Chipulun, and there was a military camp. He took a round of that military camp, stayed there for a few days, saw that everything is in proper order. He also visited Parshurama temple at Chipulun, that is in Kokal, and this temple is very famous. And after that, he went to Pratapgarh. Pratapgarh is a place from where he started his one major war, that is war against Abdul Khan. And it is believed that it is by the blessing of goddess Bhavani on Pratapgarh that he could win. That was a belief. And on that Pratapgarh, there was a temple of goddess Bhavani, and he donates a golden umbrella to the temple, to the idol of goddess Bhavani, and then he comes to Raigad, where there had been 9 days ceremony, and before the ceremony, the water was brought from the different rivers, which are rivers are considered as purifying, having a purifying capacity. And Shivaji took a ritual bath on the day of coronation. Then he goes to the temple. There is a Jagadishwara temple on Raigad. In fact, he goes there twice. Once worship in the morning, and then after that, procession also starts after the ceremony. So there is a description of ceremony. He worship, and then with a white robe, and on that he puts on royal robe, and then he ascends the throne. And under the guidance of Gaga Bhatta did not become a chief priest, but he guided the ceremony, and the chief priest was the traditional hereditary priest of Bhosle family, that was Balam Bhatt. The ceremony was performed. Kshatriya, among the Brahmins, the Varna system is generally having a four Varnas. All of you know that, I'm sure. Do you?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Kshatriya, Brahmin, Vaishya, and Shudra. All right. So out of this, this upper uh, two varnas, sometimes one only. They are considered as a dvija. Dvija means twice born. Twice born means once they have a physical birth, and second time when there is a thread ceremony. The Brahmins, they wear thread. Not only Brahmins, Kshatriyas also wear thread. Even there was a tradition when Vaishyas also used to wear thread. So this thread ceremony was a kind of initiation and beginning of the education. And though that was a beginning, later on it became a kind of ritual. Before marriage at least, or when the child becomes around 12, 13 years of age, people still conduct that thread ceremony. So they start wearing thread as a mark of being a Brahmin. And Shivaji has not done it. He was a Rajput. The thread he was not wearing. So that ceremony was conducted. He was given thread to wear by the Brahmin. Similarly, his marriage with his wives were conducted according to the Maratha rites. Now he was remarried to some of his wives once again according to the Kshatriya rites. And on this occasion, Shivaji also announced a beginning of new calendar that is called Shaka. That is the reason came to be known as the Shakakarte Shivaji, the Shivaji who started new era. Then his Soirabai was his chief queen. Sambhaji's mother, his eldest wife Saibai, had died. So the next wife Soirabai became his chief queen. And then for the redemption of the sins that he committed, like the killing of Brahmin, not following Kshatriya right, he was weighed in gold and precious stone, and that gold and precious stone equal to the weight of Shivaji was later on distributed among the Brahmins, priests, and poor people. For the ceremony, the throne was specially created where 32 mounds of gold. Mount is a measurement of the gold, which was costing around 14 lakh during those days. That kind of throne was created. Shivaji was weighing in gold. This I have already told you, and it was given away in charity. Huge donation was given to the Brahmin. Daga Bhatt, the chief priest, the priest who guided the ceremony, was given 1 lakh in cash, apart from the very costly cloth. And apart from that, other Brahmin and priests, they were also given dakshina and gift. Poor people who gathered there on food were fed and they were given gifts. And it is according to Sabhasad, the expenditure was 1 crore 42 lakh kun, which Sarkar do not agree. Sarkar says that it must be around 50 lakh kun. Kun was a measurement, was a kind of fine. 50 lakh kun was the expenditure. And then after the ceremony, when Shivaji ascended the throne, the royal umbrella was held over his head and he was declared as Chhatrapati. And after that, he in the procession, the elephant was decorated with a golden with what you call golden howdah. Howdah is a place that you put on the back of the elephant to sit. Golden howdah, and the chief senapati, the chief commander in chief Hambira Mohite, he was leading the elephant. He was driving the elephant, and Shivaji sat in that golden howdah. And it was they gone to Jagdishwar temple, and in the court, king as well as his Astapradhan. Shivaji slowly put his Astapradhan system, that is a system of having eight important minister in place. So they were also present. Soirabai was present as the chief queen, and they well. And after this Rajyabhishek, Shivaji also gave an order of preparation of the Rajya Vyavhar Kosha under the guidance of Raghunath Panta Hanamante. So what it is, as Maharashtra was ruled by Adil Shah and Nizam Shah, there was a lot of creeping of the Farsi words in Marathi. So the administration was using a lot of Farsi word, and Shivaji thought of purifying it in a way, to replace Farsi word with the Sanskrit word. So he asked that Rajya Vyavhar Kosh is to be prepared and Sanskrit word is to be used in the administration. Shivaji assumed the title Kshatriya Kulavanta Maharaja Shiva Chhatrapati. That means the prince, the crown among the Kshatriyas, Shiva Chhatrapati, the owner of the Chhatra. Chhatra is having a considered as a person having a royalty. The royal independent people are only allowed to have Chhatra over his head. And saffron flag with golden embroidery was adopted as a national flag of the Marathas. And saffron flag was in use for many centuries together by the Marathas. And when the ceremony was conducted, the cannon was fired from Raigad, and taking clue, the cannon from all the forts of Shivaji was fired, symbolizing that ceremony is conducted and Shivaji is proclaimed as Chhatrapati the king. So this is the position of the Astapradhan during the ceremony. Right side, the Peshwa. Peshwa is also in fact a Farsi word, and Shivaji has planned to replace Peshwa with Pantapradhan. It did not take place. The later on also we find that the Peshwa would continue. Moro Trimbak Pingale was Peshwa of Shivaji. Then there were these two people, Niro Nilakantha and Ramchandra Nilakantha. These were the two brothers who were collectively looking after the responsibility of Amatya, and other name of that post was also Mujumdar. Then Annaji Datta was Sachiv. He was another name of that post is Surnis. This Sachiv is again a Parsi word. Amatya is a Sanskrit word. Muzumdar is a Parsi word. Sorry, Surnis is a Parsi word. Sachiv is a Sanskrit word. Pantapradhan is a Sanskrit word. Peshwa is a Parsi word. And Dattatreya Tembak was, Wakanis. Wakanis is again Parsi word, but he was renamed, that post was renamed as Mantri. Hambira Mohite Sarnavat is a Parsi word again. That post was renamed as Senapati. He was standing on the left side of Shivaji. Then Trimbak Sondev and his son, they were Sumant. In Parsi, it was called Dabir. They were looking after this. What were the different responsibility of these different posts that we will discuss when we will be discussing about the Maratha administration. Niraji Raoji was Nyadhish, and Raoji Pandit Rao was Danadhyaksha, giving the donation for the religious charity. So these were the eight ministers who were standing in the court. Shivaji was sitting, his queen was sitting, crown prince Sambhaji was made as a crown prince. He was sitting, and but then most of the pradhan were standing. So you can see this photograph of the painting of the coronation ceremony. Shivaji sitting in the golden throne, and all his pradhan were standing, and he is a British representative of Sudan. Well, And this is the ruins of Raigad, the fort, very huge fort that was Shivaji's capital, where all this ceremony has took place. Now there is another episode of second coronation. Up to here, is there any doubt? Coronation, we need to understand the need of coronation. What was the opposition, and little bit about the ceremony. What was the significance of that coronation? We'll discuss it later on. But up to here, this coronation. Is there any doubt?
No, sir.
Sir, what
Okay,
is
fine.
June
Now what
16?
happened is hello.
Hello,
Well,
sir.
okay,
What
please
is June
mute yourself.
16?
I'm hearing well, okay. Now what happened is among the Hinduism or in any religion, as a matter of fact, there is an always a difference of opinion, about the rituals, different of opinion about the way a man should conduct his life. And same thing happened in this case also. Among the Hinduism, Gaga Bhatta has conducted ceremony which was based on the Vedic tradition. But then there was a person called Nishchal Puri. He was ascetic, he was a tantric, and then he believed that Gaga Bhatta has conducted, has made certain mistakes. And during that ceremony of Shivaji's coronation, based on the Vedic tradition conducted by Gaga Bhatta, this tantric was given not tantric were not given any importance. His disciples were expelled from the ceremony. And Nishchal Puri Goswami, he goes, he had some influence with Shivaji. He talks to Shivaji and he says that the ceremony that was conducted by Gaga Bhatta was not done on an auspicious occasion. Similarly, as you have done it on the Vedic tradition, tantric gods are not happy. So that is the reason you are facing certain problem. And Shivaji did face certain problem. Within 11 on the 11th day after the coronation, Shivaji's mother Jizabai had died. His wife Kashibai has died immediately after the coronation. Then, just before the coronation, his Senapati Prataparao Guzar was killed in the war. Similarly, during the ceremony, there was a lotus made up of wood. It was a symbolic lotus. It fell on one of the priests. And Sambhaji, the crown prince, lost some of the pearl from his necklace. And there was you know there was a fire broke out in Pratapgarh, and something has burned. So Nishchal Puri, he goes to Shivaji and says that, see, this is what is happening because your ceremony was not conducted on the auspicious occasion. So to please the tantric god, you have to conduct another ceremony. So the first ceremony took place in June 1674, and in September 1674, almost 3 months after the first ceremony, another ceremony of Shivaji's coronation according to the tantric rite was conducted by Nishchal Puri Goswami. And आपको Jagannath Sarkar writes here that it was all because of the greed of the Brahmins that Shivaji gave in. Shivaji, because he did not wanted to antagonize any of the class, any of the believer. So Shivaji gave in, and that ceremony was done in a day. And again, there was a giving lot of donation to Nishchal Puri and his disciple and the other Brahmins as well. So we see that there is a conflict in the tradition, but nevertheless, a second ceremony, and we get information about this second coronation ceremony by the text called Shivrajya Vishek Kalpataru, which is written by a person called Govind Barve, who was disciple of Nishchal Puri Goswami. So this second coronation is done. Now, significance. What is the significance of this coronation ceremony? First thing, it has inspired the people. Now the Hindus who were by and large suppressed under the Muslim rule of Mughal, as well as the Muslim ruler of southern part of India, they had a sense of pride that now we have a place where we can practice our religion without the fear of molestation. We don't have to pay jizya. So it was a kind of assertion of the Maratha and Hindu pride. Do you remember the concept of Maharashtra Dharma? It was a combination of the regional and the religion pride. So that assertion has resurfaced. It manifested in this coronation ceremony. It challenged the Mughal imperialism. The Mughal, they did not like, Aurangzeb was very uncomfortable after this coronation ceremony. They did not like anybody proclaiming themselves independent, anybody doing their coronation ceremony without getting sanction from the Mughal emperor. And so it was a kind of open challenge to the Mughal imperialism. And the ideal of kingship that is projected by this is that now that is a traditional ideal of kingship that has developed among the Hindu tradition, that the king should protect the weak from the injustice. So now the people got hope because during all that ceremony, Shivaji has taken a vow that I will protect the Brahmins, I will protect the weak. Now earlier, as Shivaji, though Shivaji was a virtual ruler, his orders and his capacity to punish was sometimes questioned. The normal chief, many times the Hindu tradition believed that have no right to punish the Brahmins, but the crown king, who has become king after the ceremony of coronation, can punish the Brahmins. So now he had got an extensive authority over the population. His rule became more legitimized. So from Jagirdar, he now become king. His orders, the earlier when he used to issue the order issued by by Adil Shah was considered as having a more respect, because Adil Shah had been ruler for generation to generation. But Shivaji was a son of a Jagirdar. Now, but after coronation, his orders, his sanction has become more important, and it was a kind of new era. Many people believe that it was a kind of symbolizing the Hindu awakening. Hindu masses who were suppressed for centuries together under the domination of Islam, for them it was a beginning of the new era. And the kind of inspiration Shivaji's name, it still inspire, it still electrifies the people. While in Maharashtra, you need to be very careful what you speak about Shivaji, otherwise people get very emotional about Shivaji. And there is a poem written by Kavi Bhushan, who was North Indian, but he came to the court of Shivaji after hearing about Shivaji's work, and he composed a lot of poetry about Shivaji. So that poem, which was composed near about 300 years back, is still sung. And on the occasion of the Shiv Jayanti, young boys and girls, they take out procession and they sing that song. They play that huge drum. So I'll just show you a small video on YouTube, which will give you an indication that if Shivaji's name and the poem composed after him can do this after 350 years, what it must have done to the people. So that aspiration and confidence, it reflects in the singer here, which we are going to see now. I will stop sharing this, and then I will open to this, share, share this screen. Can you see the screen and me?
Sir,
Yes, sir.
You can see the screen.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, yeah, I just wanted to give an idea what kind of electrifying effect that Shivaji's name and aspiration can have. It is almost bordering on frenzy, and it still continues. Shivaji's name, it still evokes certain feelings, certain emotion. Even during the period of colonial period, you see here, this is a text Chhatrapati Shivaji written by Lala Lajpat Rai. Lala Lajpat Rai. One of the freedom fighter, he writes this book to inspire the people. Similarly, uh, Bankim Chandra Chatterjee has written about Marathas. So, the work of Shivaji and the Marathas under him, it continued to inspire the generation, and it continued to inspire the Marathas of his time. And that is the reason we find that later on next semester we'll be studying about the expansion of Maratha power in the north, how that legacy of Shivaji has become one of the important force to mobilize the people, important force that motivated the people, and the Marathas. They are a very rare example that the people from south, like Maharashtra, has going and conquering northern territory, even reaching up to the place called Atak, which is a border region between present-day Pakistan and Afghanistan. There was a time when governor of Multan was Maratha, which is a place in Pakistan now. So they have gone such a long distance, but the inspiration lies in the work of Shivaji. And this coronation was one of the inspiring events which had given a hope to the Marathas and to the Hindus as well. So I'll just sum up finally. So the coronation. What was the need of the coronation? Because of the opposition of the local chief. There were certain problems whether Shivaji was Kshatriya or not. That was a problem. But that was resolved with the help of a very respectable Brahmin at Banaras called Bhagavath. And then the ceremony was conducted. A lot of money was spent. Shivaji was very involved, and then uh, he proclaimed his Astapantha in front of everybody. The British Vakil was present, and then there was another ceremony, Tantric, and then there was a significance of coronation. Now Shivaji's order had got sanctity; he got power to punish the people, and obviously it was and a loud proclamation to the Mughal, loud proclamation to the Adil Shah and Golconda. They were not in a stronger position to oppose Shivaji anymore. So obviously, it was a very loud proclamation to Mughal that yeah, we do have a place where we can practice our religion, and you just can't do anything against us. So that is how what was the significance of coronation. I'm just taking. If you have any doubts so far, you can ask me.
So, what was the name of the calendar started by Shivaji?
Yeah, it was called Shivaji Shak. That is the reason it was called Shivaji Shak. But that was not used. Even it might have been used, but we were not sure how to what extent it has been put to the use, because whatever dates we have now, they correspond to the Christian era only, right? So it is
Okay.
called Shak only. Shak is the beginning of the new era, right? And
Shag.
it
Okay.
started on the day of coronation. The day of coronation was 6 June 1674. All right,
Yes, sir.
according to Christian calendar. Today is 29. I'll just stop
Sure.
recording.
Yes. Sir,